Morning sixth graders, today's lesson is 3-4, which is algebraic expressions. Now yesterday we talked about numerical expressions where we put together different numbers and different operations as well and followed order operations. Now today we're taking our next step with our algebraic expressions and we're including one more thing. Algebraic expressions always include an operation, a number, and a variable. Now, a variable is going to be a letter or symbol that represents an unknown quantity. So a variable, it can be any letter, and throughout the lesson, you will be seeing X, N, T, V. You're going to be using a wide variety. Listen to what it tells you there. But that variable, later on, we're going to figure out what that variable actually equals. But for now, it's going to be an unknown quantity. So when we're looking at algebraic expressions, as we're going through these ones, you need to make sure that you have an operation, so adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, or a combination of all of those, a number, at least one, and variables. Heads up for your numbers, you will be dealing with whole numbers, you'll be dealing with fractions and decimals today. Now before we get started, we are going to talk a little bit about our different operations. The first one that I want to take a look at is addition. Now, you guys have been doing addition for quite some time, but let's try to think of some of the words that when you see these specific words, you're going to think addition. You guys look at do my video, and look who just snuck downstairs and is hiding under the chair. Addie, it's time to go to bed. Go to bed. You guys, she's not listening. All right, so when we have an addition problem, some words that you may see to show that it's addition, you might simply see the word add. You might see the word addition. Now, some other things that you might see the word sum. Remember, the sum is going to be our answer in an addition problem. Some other words that you might see greater than. That's going to show that we're going to be adding. Nice handwriting, sorry about that, guys. You might see more than, or you might see the word increased. Those are all different phrases or words that you may see that show that it's going to be an addition problem. Now, one thing about addition, it follows what's called the commutative property. So A plus B is going to equal the same thing as B plus A. So here we can switch the order on these numbers and on these variables, and you're going to get that same answer. So keep that in mind when we're looking at our addition. So if we see the word add, addition, sum, greater than, more than, increased, we're going to know that we're going to be using addition. All right, on to our next one. Next one, let's talk about subtraction. Now, for this one, you might see the word subtract right in there. Now, the answer in a subtraction problem, you might see the word difference. Some other words that you might see that are going to show that it's going to be subtraction, they might say take away. They may say decreased. Or they may say less than. Those are all common phrases that you may see to show that it's going to be a subtraction problem. Now, one thing to keep in mind with subtraction, this does not follow the commutative property. So that means that if we do A minus B, that is not equal to B minus A. Sorry about the bad handwriting. That we can't switch our order. So when we're looking at subtraction in algebraic expressions, we really have to think logically to make sure that we're following the correct order. Now, our next operation that we're going to talk about is multiplication. Now, for multiplication, some key words that you might see times, like 3 times, 2 times. You might see product, and you might simply see the word multiply. Now, with multiplication, it's also really important for us to know all the different ways that we can write a multiplication problem. Now, if we're looking at 4 times n, like n is our variable, we can write it in many different ways. We could write it as 4 times n. We could write it as 4, and sometimes you're going to see this dot in n. You guys, that dot means multiplication. We could show it with parentheses, because we know those parentheses next to it is going to be multiplication, or we can simply do 4n. with our variable and with our number and our variable touching together. That shows that we're going to multiply. You guys, if you're doing that, just keep in mind, the variable always goes first. So it is not going to be n4, it would be 4n. So those are all different phrases that you may see or ways that you may write multiplication. Multiplication does follow the community property, so A times B is going to equal to B times A. Those are going to be equal to each other. So here that order can change. All right. And our last operation is going to be our division. For division, some things that you might see, some phrases you might see divided. Now, sometimes they might throw in that divided by. We might see the word quotient, which is our answer in a division problem. Another word that you may see, they might talk about things being shared equally. That's going to show that we're going to be doing some dividing as well. Equally, there we go. Might be showing that it's shared equally. Now, division, just like multiplication, can be written in a couple different ways. We could have n divided by 4. Now, we could also have n over 4, because that's showing that same thing, that fraction bar acts as a division problem, or that n/4 or n over 4 is a fraction. All different ways to show that division. Now, kind of keeping with other ones, you guys, this does not follow commutative property, so that we cannot change the order. We have to make sure that we are staying in the correct order for our division problems. Okay, now that was just a little background information that we needed before we can actually do some of our problems. In today's lesson, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking a word form, like a number sentence, and turning that into an algebraic expression. So the first one that we're going to take a look at is this. 7 more than a number p. So 7 more than a number p. So if we're looking here, we have our number, we have our variable, and the last thing that we need to figure out is what is our operation. That's where we're going to look at our words to help us figure that out. And here, our words, our phrase that we have is more than. Now, thinking back, we just talked about this one, did we? Yep, we did. More than is going to show addition. So this one where it's 7 more than a number p, we could write it as 7 plus p, or because it does follow the commutative property, we could also write it as p plus 7. Both of those answers would be acceptable for an answer on this problem. Next one, how about if we have 40 divided by a number n. 40 divided by a number n. We have our number, we have our variable, we need to figure out what our operation is going to be. In this case, it's divided by, we know that it's going to be division. Now, here you guys, we really have to think logically. It says 40 divided by a letter m, or a number m. So in this case, it's going 40 divided by m. So we could write it that way. We could also write it as 40 over m. Both of those ones would work for your answer, but making sure that you're staying in that same order. 40 divided by a number m. Now, some of these problems, you may see a couple different operations. Let's look at this one. 7 times the sum of y and 1/3. 7 times the sum of y and 1/3. First, let's take a look at the numbers that we have. We know we have a 7. We know we have a 1/3. Now, looking at our variables, we know we're going to have a y. Now, let's look at our words that we have here. It says times. We know we're going to have multiplication. And sum, which is the answer in an addition problem. Now, this is where we need to really think about this problem and figure out what exactly it's asking here. Here it says 7 times the sum of y and 1/3. Now, for this one, you guys, we need to take care of that sum first. So in this case, I'm going to put this in parentheses. Now, I'm putting this in parentheses because we want to make sure that we're finding the sum of those two things. And then on the outside, I'm going to have my 7 times. Another way I could write this is 7, and then on the outside, y plus 1/3, because it's showing us that same thing. Now, really quick, I want to show you what it looks like without the parentheses and why those parentheses are important. Now, if I just did 7 times the sum of y and 1/3, look at this problem. Look at our order of operations. If we're doing order of operations, we would have to do this first and then do our addition. But here, it told us that we want the sum of y and 1/3. So we're going to kind of section that off and put that in parentheses so that we make sure that we get the sum of those two things. So our answer here, 7 times y plus 1/3. All right, let's do another example for this one, and then we're going to go on to the second part. Okay, this one again, a couple different operations. It's going to be twice a number m, plus the quantity n minus 4. Sorry guys, that's a long one. So looking here, you guys, we have two different variables. We have n. We have this number 4. We have a minus. We have a plus. Now, twice a number. Now, you guys, that twice is showing that we're going to multiply by 2. So not only is that 2, but it's also going to be multiplying. So now we need to look at this sentence and we need to write this out in an algebraic expression. So I'm just going to start at the beginning and work my way to the right. It says twice a number m. That twice a number m, we're going to write it as 2m, or 2 times m, plus the quantity, which is going to be looking at that answer, n minus 4. So we have plus n minus 4. Now in this one, because we have addition and subtraction, we do not necessarily need to put the parentheses around it. If you'd like to have parentheses to show that it's a quantity of those two, this right here would be perfectly fine as well. However, it just doesn't change how we're going to be doing the operations on this one. All right, so part of your assignment today is going to be taking those algebraic expressions, those number sentences, and turning those into algebraic expression. The other part is taking a look at some different wording for us. I'm going to start by writing an example up here. I have 12r plus r over 2 minus 19. The first word that we're going to be taking a look at here is the word term. Term is looking at a part of an expression that is separated by addition or a subtraction sign. So if we're looking at to see how many terms are in the sentence, we want to see how many parts are separated by a plus or minus sign. So here we have an addition sign and we have a subtraction sign. Now, when we break those into parts, here we have 1 term, 2 terms, and 3 terms. So there we go. This problem here has 3 terms. Now, even though we have another operation here and here, we are only dividing them up when they are separated by an addition and subtraction sign. And we're going to think, how many different sections are there? How many parts are there? So this would have 3 terms. Now, the other word that we're going to take a look at here before I move on to our next example is called a coefficient. A coefficient is going to be the number that's multiplied by a variable. Now, coefficient sounds like a crazy fancy word, but it's not too bad, you guys. If we're taking a look at 12r, where we have a number multiplied by a variable, the coefficient here is 12. It's the number that you multiply by the variable. So whether it's attached to it or it might be 12 times r, same thing, our coefficient would be 12. Let's look at a couple more examples for those problems. And I think Addie went back to bed on her own, which is like a miracle, you guys. Okay, let's look at this one. 2d plus 5 1/3. So the first question that I have for you is how many terms are there in this expression? So we're going to think how many parts are divided or separated by our addition problem. So here we have one addition problem or subtraction. So there are 1 and 2 terms for this problem. Now the second part is what number is the coefficient? Remember, this is the number that's multiplied together with the variable. Here is our variable. In this problem, our coefficient would be 6 because that is the number that is multiplied together with our variable. And our last example for today, 67.5 minus 7n minus n. Now, first thing, let's take a look at this problem and figure out how many terms are in this expression. So we're going to divide up wherever we have that addition subtraction sign. So we have one here, another here. So there are 1, 2, 3 terms. And my second question for this one is what is the coefficient? So remember, it's the number that's multiplied together with the variable. Here's our variable, the number that's multiplied together with it. Our coefficient is going to be 7. Now, today's assignment is going to look a little bit different. I do want to try out one of our online assignments again. So on Google Classroom, there is a link to go to the online problems. The nice thing about this one, you guys, you will get your answer back right away on how you did. If there's a question that you're struggling with, go to this. There's a button on the bottom that says show similar questions, I believe is the wording. Take a look at those. They really help you kind of go through and give you a little couple extra examples if you need it. But if you have any questions, please make sure that you ask. Once again, we're looking at algebraic expressions. Have a good one.